a world where questions about the existence of God have occupied philosophers, theologians, and ordinary people alike for millennia, there exists a perspective that often goes unnoticed: Apatheism. Apatheism, a term that may sound unfamiliar to many, represents a particular stance towards the debate on the existence of God. The belief that the question itself is irrelevant or of no consequence. But how can such a position be justified? Is apatheism merely indifference, or does it signify a deeper philosophical understanding of the human condition and our place in the universe? What is apatheism? The word apatheism derives from two Greek roots: pathos, meaning emotion or feeling, and a prefix meaning without. It essentially denotes the absence of emotional investment or concern about the question of God's existence. For apatheists, the debate on whether God exists or not holds no personal significance. This perspective might initially be viewed as apathy, but in a philosophical sense, it offers a profound critique of the way we engage with metaphysical questions. Apatheism isn't to be confused with atheism or agnosticism. Whereas atheism asserts that there is no God, and agnosticism claims that God's existence is unknowable or uncertain, apatheism simply declares that the question itself is irrelevant to one's life and well-being. This detachment is not born of ignorance or denial, but rather from a deliberate choice to focus on what is immediate, tangible, and impactful. To understand apatheism fully, we must first examine the historical context in which it emerged. Throughout human history, the question of God's existence has shaped civilizations, moral systems, and even scientific inquiry. From Aristotle's unmoved mover to Kant's moral argument for God, the search for a divine presence has been at the heart of philosophical discourse. However, as the Enlightenment unfolded and science began to offer explanations for natural phenomena once attributed to divine intervention, many found themselves questioning the relevance of God's existence in a world increasingly governed by empirical observation and rational thought. In modernity, apatheism could be seen as a natural evolution of this intellectual movement. It reflects a growing recognition that, regardless of the theological arguments for or against God, the practical implications of such questions are diminishing in the daily lives of many. Apatheism speaks to the human desire for peace and serenity in an often tumultuous world. It is rooted in a certain existential pragmatism, acknowledging that many of the grand metaphysical questions may simply not have a bearing on the quality of one's life. In this sense, apatheism mirrors the philosophy of existentialism, particularly the ideas of Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who argued that life, in its absurdity, does not require the comforting illusion of a higher meaning imposed by a divine force. To embrace apatheism is to say, I do not need to resolve the question of God's existence in order to live meaningfully. This perspective emphasizes the autonomy of the individual in creating purpose and meaning, independent of divine intervention or a cosmic framework. It highlights the freedom to choose how to engage with life's challenges, without the weight of metaphysical certainty or doubt. From a more modern viewpoint, apatheism can be understood as a response to the overwhelming complexity of the modern world. With the proliferation of conflicting worldviews and the increasing pace of technological and social change, it is not difficult to see why individuals might turn away from questions of God's existence. In a sense, apatheism can be viewed as an attempt to preserve mental and emotional energy in a world that demands constant attention and adaptation. Throughout the philosophical universe, humanity has developed countless systems of thought in an attempt to solve the mystery of existence. Each of these thought systems resonates with a different tone, a different attitude, as it seeks to answer the fundamental question of humanity: does God exist? Theistic thought, deeply rooted in belief in a divine being as both the origin and the ultimate purpose of everything, presents a profound conviction in God's supremacy. To theists, God is both the first cause and the final purpose of the cosmos. Thomas Aquinas, one of the towering figures of the Middle Ages, stands out with his 5 ways argument, aiming to prove the existence of God. For Aquinas, God is the creative force of the universe, the key to the cause and effect chain, and his existence is not a dogma, but a logical necessity. In contrast to this, atheism boldly challenges all these divine inspirations, asserting that the universe operates based on natural laws and logic. Atheism calls humanity to break free from the shadow of God and become the master of its own fate. Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead," marking the end of humanity's need for a divine figure. For Nietzsche, the absence of God does not lead to despair but to liberation, freedom for mankind to create meaning and impose its will. However, deism serves as a bridge between these two opposing stances. For deists, God is the architect of the universe. But once the great work of creation was completed, the Creator withdrew and ceased to intervene in the workings of the cosmos. Voltaire, embracing rational thought, accepted the existence of God while rejecting the dogmas of religion and the moral constraints imposed by it. His famous quote, "If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him," highlights the psychological and societal need humans have for a divine figure. This God is not personal, but universal, a great watchmaker who set the universe in motion and then left it to run on its own. Another philosophical approach, Agnosticism, claims that knowledge of God's existence is inherently impossible. Thomas Huxley, a leading figure in the agnostic movement, argued, "We cannot have definitive knowledge about the existence or non-existence of God," asserting that this issue lies beyond the scope of human reason. For Huxley, debates about God's existence do not belong to the realm of reason or science. They are questions that should remain unanswered. Despite its intellectual allure, apatheism is not without its critics. Some may argue that it represents a form of philosophical laziness, a refusal to engage with one of the most important questions of human existence. To dismiss the question of God's existence as irrelevant, critics contend, is to abandon a fundamental part of the human experience. Furthermore, apatheism raises questions about moral and ethical implications. If one accepts that the existence of God does not matter, how does that influence the way one lives? Is it possible to construct a coherent moral framework without the guiding hand of divine authority? These are difficult questions that apatheism does not directly answer, but it opens up the possibility for a new kind of morality, one that is grounded in human experience, reason, and mutual understanding, rather than religious dogma. Apatheism, at its core, is a reflection of a desire for intellectual freedom. In an age of constant information overload, the concept of stepping back from the theological debate and acknowledging that it may no longer be relevant is a form of liberation. The age of existential crises and spiritual disillusionment has led many to adopt a more nihilistic or agnostic stance. But apatheism offers a third way, one that does not require constant searching for meaning in the divine, but instead allows individuals to focus on the here and now. Additionally, in a world where people are becoming increasingly diverse in their beliefs, apatheism serves as a non-confrontational way to sidestep divisive debates. It opens up space for more inclusive discussions that are less about proving one worldview to be correct and more about coexisting with various perspectives. Apatheism offers a unique perspective on the question of God's existence, providing a philosophical space where one can remain indifferent to metaphysical debates without losing sight of the importance of human experience. It is not a rejection of God, but a conscious choice to not let the question of his existence dominate one's life. Whether it stems from existential pragmatism, intellectual fatigue, or a commitment to living in the present, apatheism challenges us to reconsider the importance we place on metaphysical questions in an increasingly complex and fast-moving world. For many, apatheism may represent a final liberation from the metaphysical weight that has shaped human history. By accepting that the question of God may not hold the answers we seek, we may finally be free to focus on the human experience, relationships, and the search for meaning in the here and now. In a world full of uncertainty, apatheism may just offer the peace of mind we've all been seeking. Thank you so much for watching and listening. The video is over. Goodbye.